right here all alone. Oh, are you alive? Don't you feel? Show me you're here. Show me your tears.
Silence! Young man, you're in contempt.
Anything but. Your Honor, I am telling the truth. Michael Corinthos was not held out of court so he couldn't testify. He was kept away so he couldn't confess. He wasn't just a witness to Claudia's killing. He actually did it. And everything since that point has been a cover-up, starting with the defendant's plea of self-defense. I can prove it.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, but I cannot sit idly by while all the rules of judicial procedure are made a mockery of.
Your Honor, for once the prosecution agrees with the defense. This is just a last-minute effort for Detective Falconeri to grandstand. And I promise you, I'll have your badge for it.
Well, for telling the truth, I would think you'd be grateful. I saved you the career embarrassment of prosecuting what happens to be an innocent man, at least in this case.
You people need a dictionary. Silence means nobody talks but me until I say otherwise. Now, you violate that, you'd be prepared to make your home in a holding cell for the foreseeable future. Anybody want to call my bluff? Bailiff, take the jury back to the jury room. You are not dismissed. You are not to put credence on anything you've just heard. At this point, this is nothing but a fairy tale concocted for God only knows why, and I intend to find out. Now, don't talk about it. Go. I will hear objections. Prosecution first.
Detective Falconeri is a walking conflict of interest, Your Honor. He's the defendant's son, as evidenced by the fact that he's already lied under oath to this court to protect his father. And talk about fairy tales? Who can forget the whopper that Detective Falconeri spun about the Keystone cop who fumbled his gun and shot himself, when anyone with half a brain knows that Sonny Corinthos shot him at point-blank range?
You prove that, we'll have something to talk about.
I've already proved it in the second lie Detective Falconeri is telling. He is covering for his father again by trying to direct this court into a mistrial. And any proof he claims to have is yet another fabrication unless Michael Corinthos walks in here and confesses. Are you going to produce this witness? No, you can't, because you conveniently let him go. Your Honor, for all we know, the detective and Michael have cooked this whole thing up, and Michael is probably kicked back on some privately owned, mob-financed island, laughing his ass off at the rest of us, scrambling around trying to find justice for Claudia Corinthos, the actual victim here.
Sit down, Detective Falconeri. I'll hear from the defense.
Whatever you have to say, make it count.
Your Honor, Michael is deeply troubled through no fault of his own. He sustained massive brain injury during an assassination attempt against his father and spent the next year in a coma. He underwent neurological surgery to bring him out of that coma. But the procedure had residual effects, and a once bright, sweet, sunny young boy has now been turned into a dark, withdrawn young man. The one thing that hasn't changed is his abiding love for my client. Michael would walk into oncoming traffic for his father.
I'm going to interrupt you for a clarification, Miss Miller. Are you objecting to a development that could exonerate your client?
My client does not wish to go free at the expense of his son, so his story still stands. Sonny Corinthos killed his wife in defense of Carly and Jocelyn Jacks, and any so-called confession by Michael is well-meaning but misguided 11th-hour attempt at a save.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, did everyone miss the part where I said I've got proof?
You stifle yourself, Detective Falconeri. This is my courtroom. I make the rules. You don't come in here like some wild dog into a henhouse doing and saying whatever you want. Either you abide by my wishes, or I will lock you up and rule any evidence you may offer as fruit of the poison tree and toss it. Now, the Honorable Judge Peter Carroll calls you to the stand and admonishes you. This story better damn well be good.
have to turn you in. But I'd like to hear what really happened that night. From you. Not with Carly's spin or Dante's conflict clouding things. Straightforward from your perspective.
When you look back with perspective, it all ties together. Michael had been struggling since he came out of the coma. It was neurological damage. He had impulse control issues. I mean, he was an emotional, volatile kid. And that night set him off. And I gotta admit, it was shocking when Sonny went off on Claudia the way he did. No one expected it. Everything seemed normal. 1 minute, everything was fine, and then the next, chaos. Claudia had Michael's pregnant mother at gunpoint. She was going into labor. She hauls her out of there, steals a car, goes God knows where. I mean, Michael wasn't the only one flipping out.
Jax brought me home. My dad showed up, wanted me to stay with him, and they got into this raging fight. And I stood there thinking, if I just come forward sooner and say it was Claudia who got me shot, none of it would be happening. So, you know, my head felt like it was going to explode. And that's why I decided to take off. I didn't know or care where I end up. I mean, Canada seemed as good as a destination as any, so I got in my car and I headed for the border.
Michael's driving along. He sees the car Claudia stole from the Metro Court. He knows it's hers because it's got the valet ticket. But there's no sign of Carly and Claudia.
So I yelled out for my mom. I was already afraid of what I might find. My mom had a risky pregnancy, and we tiptoed around her for months because any stress caused a stroke. So, and after everything that just happened, I felt scared for her.
Michael followed a track through the woods to a cabin. At first, he was relieved. Carly and Claudia had found shelter.
I made my way up to the door, and I heard my mom screaming. Does it get hazy from there? I wish. I remember every second.
I mean, can you imagine what's going through this kid's head? There's his mother on the couch. She'd just given birth, and this mad woman who'd kidnapped her at gunpoint is about to take off with the baby.
So there wasn't much time to think. I just knew I couldn't let Claudia leave that cabin with my baby sister. So I grabbed the axe and I ran inside and I hit her as hard as I possibly could. And then she just crumpled. So still. Blood making a pool under her head.
Michael dropped to his knees beside Claudia. That's where he got her blood on his shirt.
And she was dead. I didn't mean to kill Claudia, okay? All I wanted to do was stop her.
Didn't mean to kill Claudia. I believe him. If there had been a proper investigation, law enforcement would have believed him too.